Well, for now, the assassination attempt is overshadowing everything in the heated presidential race in the US. Mitch McCann joins us live from New York with the latest update from Ground Zero. Thanks so much, Mitch, for making time for us. Now, this attempted assassination of former President Trump, it has raised new concerns about security at this week's Republican National Convention, right?
It certainly has. Good evening again from the United States, where it has been a dramatic 24 hours after that attempted assassination of Donald Trump in Pennsylvania at about 6:15 local time last night. As you say, there have been significant concerns ahead of the Republican National Convention in the coming days. That's taking place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, somewhere where Donald Trump has landed in the last couple of hours on his plane. He is there. He will be speaking later this week, and the Secret Service has tried to reassure people that the situation is under control and they have taken care of the security measures and there'll be no issues later on this week. Of course, the security services and the Secret Service have been planning this for a very long time, so you can imagine they would have looked into this very carefully in the last 24 hours after this attempt on Donald Trump's life. And speaking of Donald Trump, there have been some new developments in the last short while. He's given a very short interview to the Washington Examiner newspaper, and I want to read you a quote from Donald Trump where he's talking about this Republican convention in Milwaukee. He says, "The speech I was going to give on Thursday was going to be a humdinger. Had this not happened, this would have been one of the most incredible speeches, aimed at mostly the policies of President Joe Biden. Honestly, it's going to be a whole different speech now." That is Donald Trump talking about his speech to the Republican National Convention later this week. I'll read you that last quote just again. Honestly, it's going to be a whole different speech now. That is from Donald Trump.
Right. Interestingly, Mitch, also in the past 10 days, two political ratings analysts have downgraded Joe Biden's chances of winning Minnesota. And Minnesota has not voted for a Republican presidential candidate since 1972 and Richard Nixon, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I think Minnesota is one of these states, but there are many more to consider as well at the moment. There are 6 or 7 swing states, and most of them, if not all of them, have been going in Donald Trump's favour for at least 6 months now. It's been a difficult few weeks, few weeks for Joe Biden. I think we have to acknowledge that. There have been loud calls for him to stand down as the Democratic nominee for president up until this happened yesterday. I think that conversation will be put on pause for some time now while they consider what has happened in Pennsylvania to Donald Trump. But yes, that's right. There are a number of states where at the moment, if the election were held today, the polls would show that the Democrats would lose. One burning question after this incident in Pennsylvania is going to be, how will this impact Donald Trump's campaign? There is some suggestion that it will see him gain a lot of support. People that maybe support Donald Trump will now vote for Donald Trump.
Yes.
But that remains to be seen. It's important to note there are still 4 months until the US election. And as we've seen in the last couple of weeks, things can change on a dime very, very quickly.
Mitch, as always, thank you so much for joining us with the latest from Ground Zero.